Welcome back to Local News Live. It is the third day of November on this beautiful Thursday in November 3rd. And I am joined here with my co-host, Tia Goodwin. How are you doing this morning, Tia?
I'm doing great, Victoria. Thank you for asking. I have just been looking at all of our great websites to see what stories are trending this morning.
Yes, and we're going to go through the top trending Gray TV stories. But first, Tia, what do you say? Let's take a look at your top national headlines happening across the nation. And we've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and give you a little bit of a preview of what we'll be talking about here on Local News Live. All right, so new intel is suggesting and heightening the fear that Russia could use nuclear weapons. We'll talk about why this has some U.S. officials split in their reaction, and an RSV vaccine for seniors is in the works, what the FDA is going to do about that, and climate change is intensifying in California at a rapid rate. That's at least according to one report. We'll share more in a few moments. And according to a CNN poll, the GOP is holding an edge in the midterm election. And we'll tell you why those GOP voters are more enthusiastic about voting than Democrats at this time. Also, United Airlines, they're trying something new. They're launching a new training program to get more tech workers on board. And Nancy Pelosi, the attack on her home and her husband, how the Capitol Police learned of it and how quickly they were able to respond. And the feds are raising interest rates again. How high did they go? We'll tell you how this trickles down to you and your finances. CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart have settled and agreed to settle to a $12 billion opioid settlement. We'll tell you what originated there. Also, Twitter. The new owner of Twitter, says it will take weeks to restore suspended accounts. And today is a national day of action when it comes to abortion activists and advocates. All right, and we'll be talking about a couple fun topics here. Apparently, this has been in all of the news, trending news since yesterday. We've been saying Adele's name wrong. And I just said it wrong. Adele. It's not Adele. What is it then? Well, she clears that up for everyone, and we'll tell you what she says. And Starbucks. If you are a Starbucks holiday cup fan, they are revealing their 25th anniversary holiday cups, and we'll see if it causes controversy, because it has in the past, especially when I believe they just released a blank red cup. So we will tell you more about that. All right, let's move along to your top story that we just previewed for you. New intel is heightening fear that Russia could use nukes. Let's talk a little bit more about this story. Russian military officials have discussed how and under what conditions Russia would use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine. That's according to new intel described by multiple sources. This information has U.S. officials divided. Some U.S. officials have heightened concern that Russia could use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. That's following an assessment from the National Intelligence Council. It suggests Russia's military leaders have been discussing what might prompt such a strike, according to multiple people who've read it. But the analysis is not raw intelligence or a high-confidence product. Some officials believe the analysis takes conversations out of context, and others are more concerned. More to that story we'll have for you later on. All right, so around this time of year, RSV is a huge concern for both seniors and infants. And now a vaccine for seniors is in the works. Let's talk a little bit more about this story. An RSV vaccine for older adults is in the works. It would be a first of its kind. For most people, RSV causes cold-like symptoms, but it can cause severe illness in older adults and young kids. Now, the pharmaceutical company GSK has announced that the FDA accepted its application for an RSV vaccine for seniors. The FDA agreed to give the vaccine an expedited review and says it will announce a decision by early May. Also this week, Pfizer announced positive results from a recent study of its RSV vaccine for babies. All right, let's now turn to the climate. Climate change in California is getting worse, and it's happening at a rapid rate. That's at least according to data from the state's Environmental Protection Agency. The effects of record high temperatures and unrelenting drought and unprecedented wildfires are a stark new reality for Californians. The report says this is increasingly taking a toll on the health and well-being of its residents and the state's unique ecosystems. The report looked at 41 scientifically measured indicators from more than 100 experts. It also included input from dozens of Native American tribes. One of the most detrimental effects of California's climate crisis, the multi-year drought it experienced. In September of 2021, the entire state was in a drought, nearly 90% in the most severe categories. A year later, the state experienced a 10-year heat wave with record-breaking high temperatures. That put a strain on the power grid and dried up freshwater supplies needed for agriculture and wildlife. All right, turning our attention to the midterms. Less than a week away from midterms, and the Republicans hold an edge over Democrats, at least in terms of voters. In a new CNN poll, Democratic enthusiasm about voting is significantly lower than it was in 2018, from 44% at that time to 24% now. Republican voters aren't as excited as they were in 2018 either, but are still more into it than Democrats, from 43% in 2018 to 38% rather now. As for the issues, Republicans and independents are broadly focused on the economy, with Democrats mostly concerned about the economy and abortion rights. All right, United Airlines, let's turn to the travel industry now. They say the anticipated demand for mechanics and other technicians is so great, it's launching a new training program. All right, this new training program is called Calibrate. It's part of the airline's push to hire 7,000 technicians in the coming years. United currently has about 9,000 people in these roles, but it has announced major plans to expand its aircraft fleet and says retirements will impact its ranks. United said trainees will be employed and paid during this program. All right, turning now to the Capitol Police. How do you protect the 535 members of Congress in the face of unprecedented numbers of threats against them? That's the question that Capitol Police is grappling with. Of course, after this is all the big question after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, was attacked in their own home. The house is in San Francisco, but there are cameras monitored by the U.S. Capitol Police in D.C. But it wasn't until about 10 minutes after the break-in that they realized what happened when an officer noticed police lights and sirens on a live camera feed. According to the Washington Post, since former President Donald Trump's election in 2016, threats of violence against lawmakers recorded by Capitol Police jumped from about 900 cases to more than 9,600 cases last year. The U.S. Capitol Police chief says the agency has engaged in a review of Paul Pelosi's attack, citing a need for more resources to improve the level of security for members of Congress. All right, some big financial news now. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates again on Wednesday, just yesterday, by another 0.75 percentage point. Let's dig into what this means for you. This is the fourth straight rate hike of that amount. The decision comes as inflation levels continue to plague the U.S. economy, pushing the cost to borrow money up even further. Mortgage rates hit an almost 20-year high. The inflation is also triggering concerns of a possible recession. Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged those concerns, but said persistent inflation would bring greater economic suffering than a recession would. And the Fed isn't done yet. It's likely to enact another 0.5 percentage hike in the month of December. CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart have tentatively agreed to pay at least $12 billion to settle opioid lawsuits. According to Bloomberg, the lawsuits were brought by state and local governments. They allege the retailers mishandled prescriptions of opioid painkillers. More than 3,000 lawsuits have been filed against pharmacies, opioid manufacturers, and distributors, accusing them of downplaying the addiction risks of opioids and also failing to stop the pills from being used illegally. Data shows the opioid crisis has claimed more than 500,000 lives over the past 2 decades, 80,000 of them in the year 2021 alone. All right, some big news with Twitter this week. Twitter's new billionaire CEO Elon Musk reiterated just a couple days ago that accounts suspended from the platform will not return right away. We'll explain a little bit more here about what he means. Musk tweeted, "Twitter will not allow anyone who is deplatformed for violating Twitter rules back until they have a clear process for doing so." He added that the process could take weeks. That means users, including former President Donald Trump, likely will not be able to rejoin the social media site before the midterm elections. Last week, Musk announced the formation of a content moderation council that would guide decision-making on user bans and policing of the platform. That council will reportedly include groups from the civil rights community and those who face hate-fueled violence. All right, today, doctors and medical providers from across the country are rallying together today for what they're calling a national day of action when it comes to the topic of abortion. The group Doctors for Abortion Access is calling on healthcare providers to demand action from lawmakers, arguing that politicians should stop creating laws that criminalize them from simply doing their jobs. Abortion providers and medical professionals from more than 10 different states will be taking part in the event, including Georgia, Ohio, Oklahoma, and Texas. All states that have implemented a complete or near total ban on abortions following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe versus Wade earlier this year. All right, that's a look at your top national headlines. We are going to transition into your top local Gray TV headlines. I'm going to bring on my co-host here, Tia Goodwin. And Tia, you've been kind of looking through all of the trending stories. And what have you found, and what can you share with us?
Well, there's a lot that happened yesterday that we want to give you updates on. A lot of stories that we reported on earlier where we have updates, and we're going to share those with you right now. The first one, talking about 2 Iowa teens who appeared in court on Wednesday, where a judge is actually going to decide what evidence can be used in their murder trial. Now, prosecutors are saying that these particular teens killed their teacher over a bad grade. We're going to get you over to our station out of Cedar Rapids. They have all the details on what happened in court on Wednesday.
This morning, investigators say Noema Graber was beaten with a baseball bat over a bad grade. She was last seen alive a year ago today. Her body was found in a park by the high school where she did work in Fairfield. Now, Willard Miller is charged with first-degree murder in the slaying and is being tried as an adult. Miller was in court today on a motion to suppress. His attorney is asking for certain evidence to be excluded from the trial. That includes search warrants and information from Miller's cell phone, particularly his Snapchat account. Special Agent Ryan Kedley from the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation testified at today's hearing. He interviewed Miller following the killing.
How would you describe the defendant's demeanor whenever he first came into contact with you?
Remarkably relaxed. Given the circumstances that he was being woken up at his residence, subject to a search warrant and transported to a law enforcement location, and then speaking with 2 detectives from the state police, he was remarkably relaxed.
Miller's attorney called his mother to testify at today's hearing. She agreed to allow her 16-year-old son to talk to investigators, but she says investigators did not tell her the whole truth, and she did not know her son was in custody at the time or that his teacher had been found dead. You can hear from her tonight on the KCRG TV9 News at 6. Jeremy Goodale is also charged with first-degree murder in Graber's death. He is set to go to trial next month. If convicted, he faces life.
And to see the story again, you can head over to kcrg.com. The next story that we are going to bring to you is an update, and this is out of Savannah, Georgia. Now, as we know, we've been talking about this for some time. It has now been a month since a toddler in Georgia went missing, and now police are saying that the chances of finding the toddler's body is very low. We're going to get you over to our station, WTOC, out of Savannah. They're going to give us the latest details.
Well, it has now been 4 weeks since little Quentin Simon disappeared from his home in Chatham County. He is the toddler police have been searching for. Since then, police have stated that they believe he's dead and have launched an extensive search operation for his remains in a local landfill. Police have not made any arrests in the case or charged anyone, but they did name Quentin's mother, Leilani Simon, as the prime and only suspect in his death and disappearance. WTOC's Shay Schrader joins us live outside the home where Quentin was last seen. Shay, any updates today from police?
Today, 4 weeks after Quentin Simon was first reported missing, the messaging from the Chatham County Police Department has changed. 2 weeks ago, in a news conference, they announced that they were launching an extensive search of the waste management landfill in Chatham County for Quentin's remains, which they believe were brought there after he was placed in a dumpster. At the time, we asked Chief Jeff Hadley if he was confident that Quentin's remains would be found. Here's what he said that day.
We are here for the long haul. Until we determine that we don't need to be here anymore. I have every belief that we will find his remains here at the landfill.
Today, 2 weeks after that news conference, Chatham County Police said on Twitter, "We knew going into this landfill search the odds of recovering Quentin's remains were low." In the next tweet, they said most landfill searches do not end in a recovery due to many factors, including volume of trash to search and compression of the debris. There's a pretty big contrast between those two statements. Again, Chief Hadley saying 2 weeks ago that he had every belief they would find Quentin's remains, and today, CCPD saying that they knew going in that it was unlikely that they would find Quentin's remains. I did reach out to the Chatham County Police Department to get some clarification on that statement and ask why there's been a shift in tone, and they said that they couldn't expand on anything. Now, in that same news conference, Will Clark with the FBI did say that the results of the search would be uncertain. The FBI also released new photos of the search for Quentin today, showing a different perspective than what's been released so far. This photo gave a look at what happens to possible evidence. You can see objects in the bins on the table, which CCPD says are not human remains, that an investigator appears to be paying close attention to, and a photo of Quentin overlooking the whole scene. Now, we do know that the landfill search is still going on. What we don't know is when the Chatham County Police Department will hold another news conference. We will, of course, continue to keep you updated as we learn more. Live in Chatham County, Shay Schrader, WTOC News.
WTOC has extensively covered this case. To take a look at all of our past stories, you can head to our website, WTOC.com. We've also included a timeline of how we got to this point. All you have to do is look for the Quentin Simon case page under the News tab. Ahead on.
And to see this story again, you can head over to WTOC.com. The next story that we are going to bring to you is out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and that is where some residents were evacuated after a train derailment caused an acid leak. We're going to get you over as our station explains.
Tonight.
There's no way to get there. It's not like it's a small puncture. It's more like a rip underneath the belly of the car.
That huge hydrochloric acid leak in St. James. The late update on when people might be able to return home.
Well, here's an advanced look at Saturday. Cold front getting in here, and boy, is it going to be a mess in the morning.
Well, you've heard of people being thrown out. This is definitely that, after investigators say they found all of these drugs right next to people's kids.
Greg, a massive drug bust near a school leads to the tenant's belongings being tossed to the curb.
He don't want nothing that was affiliated with what happened on his property, so we sending it straight to the road.
From Louisiana's News Channel, this is 9 News at 10.
Good evening, team friends. Greg and Liz here with you. We're going to start with that late update from first responders in St. James Parish. They've got a long night ahead of them as cleanup continues on that derailed train that is still spilling hydrochloric acid.
In just a few hours, it's estimated that about 20,000 gallons spilled out tonight. More than 100 people will spend the night away from their home for their safety. David Jones has an update from Paulina.
Authorities say it's a very dynamic situation here in St. James Parish, where hydrochloric acid leaking from a train car that derailed earlier this afternoon forced them to evacuate people and continue to evacuating people into the night.
A police officer came, knocking on the door, and said we had to evacuate. and I found out that the train derailed.
St. James residents seeking shelter at the Lutcher Senior Center after a train derailment leads to a chemical leak.
Did you bring anything for evacuation?
No, just the clothes on my back.
Authorities said the acid was spilling from one of the 6 train cars that derailed. It holds around 20,000 gallons of hydrochloric acid. St. James Sheriff Willie Martin says the safety of residents is their first concern. The second is the cleanup.
The cleanup crews are out working diligently. They will be out throughout the night. They are currently right now in the process of stabilizing the acid and getting everything to safe conditions to where we can return the residents back to their homes as soon as possible.
The first evacuation zone was around a quarter mile surrounding the area where the derailment happened. As the night went on, the evacuation zone expanded north as wind conditions died down, leaving the cloud of hydrochloric acid to drift north.
There's no way really to contain it, as we can see, and I'm talking to some of the experts that came on scene, pretty much all in agreement. There's no way to get there. It's not like it's a small puncture. It's more like a rip underneath the belly of the car.
Unless something should happen that the cleanup crews are not anticipating, we kind of thinking tomorrow midday everyone should be able to return to their homes. And if not, then we're going to make additional provisions to secure everyone for an additional night if need be.
This is a state police scene now. State hazmat teams are also on scene as they work with local authorities to try and contain this spill.
David.
And to see the story again, you can head over to WAFB.com. The final story that we are going to bring to you is again out of Georgia, and that is where a community is expressing frustrations over increasing reports of violence in its schools. So we're going to get you over to our station as they take us back to that community meeting where parents and educators are trying to figure out a way to fix it.
Violence at school, including these recent fights at Meadow Creek High School. The Gwinnett County Public Schools superintendent says we are in a crisis.
That's right. And tonight, leaders held a Code Red meeting with parents. Atlanta News First Patrick Quinn was in the room. So, Patrick, how do they plan to stop all of this?
Well, county leaders, they believe tonight was a great start, and that's because of who was in the room, just airing out the concerns at this, again, Code Red meeting. The school district superintendent, he was there, as was the chief of police for Gwinnett County, representatives from the court system and the district attorney. All hands on deck, listening and trying to find a way to solve this violent issue.
We have a crisis on our hands, and we need everyone's help.
That's Gwinnett County Schools Superintendent Dr. Calvin Watts, not mincing his words, a crisis in the district over the escalating violence in Gwinnett schools.
The last 3 or so weeks, there were fights happening like every day.
Freshman Kayla Fields sees it firsthand. Fights, stabbings, and in late October, a 17-year-old student, DeAndre Henderson, was shot and killed just off campus of Norcross High School. Many parents calling for swift action to make schools safer.
Our kids are suffering. They're in danger. Our schools are not safe.
Their discipline policy did not help these kids know that they can go into school and fight one day, go home, and come back the next day.
During the panel discussion, Jesse Kearney, the pastor of the host church, asked the superintendent directly about this.
When a child brings a gun to school, what are the consequences when a child brings a knife to school? I think that's the red elephant in the room.
Dr. Watts said they have levels of consequences, and they have expelled and suspended students this year. But the new policy, he said, rolled out in August, works to keep kids in the classroom, all kids.
What we have to also understand is what happens when those students come back to school, or what happens if they don't.
Watts said the district is talking about installing body scanners into schools. The county district attorney said the access to guns is an underlying part of this violent problem.
We have to be more cognizant about what our kids are doing. And the big question I have, where are they getting the guns?
And some parents I spoke with, they told me they want to see less talk and more action. And they think that action could come from the county's school board. The next Board of Education meeting is November 17th, roughly 2 weeks away. Live tonight in Lilburn, I'm Patrick Quinn, Atlanta News First.
Another beautiful night.
And that is a look at the top headlines that are trending across our Gray stations this morning for Thursday, November 3rd.
All right, thank you so much for that, Tia. We are going to transition from more so serious news into more of what they call talkers in our industry, things that make you talk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up some video of an artist that a lot of people are familiar with, and then I'm going to ask this next question. All right, Tia, how would you pronounce this artist's name?
Adele.
Adele, yes, that's how I would pronounce it. But apparently she was doing an interview. Let me adjust these cameras real quick. She was doing an interview and someone called her by her name, the proper way to pronounce Adele, and she was shocked. And that's when she revealed everyone's been using or saying her name wrong this entire time.
So how do you say her name?
Well, let's jump right into that. Let me pull this up full for you and let's talk about it. So Adele has some news for us. All these years, we've been saying her name wrong. While many pronounce it just like we do as Adele, the singer says it's actually Adele. Adele. She noted the correction during a recent Q&A session when a woman asking about her songwriting used the correct pronunciation. The event was held to celebrate her new music video for the song I Drink Wine. Well, what's up next for the singer? Her Las Vegas residency, Weekends with Adele, starts November 18th. So what do you say, Tia, to that? That's very crazy to me.
Well, okay, so my name is Tia. Some people call me Taya because they don't know. And it doesn't bother me because you don't know, until you try. But I totally identify with just not correcting it because sometimes exchanges with people are quick. And so, I'm calling a customer service rep and they might say Taya and I just won't correct them. I'll just go with it. So I understand, but Adele, that's how you say her name.
Adele.
Very interesting.
Well, and you have to think about it. So she's English. So the way that we may pronounce Adele, I wonder what that sounds like. I almost want to Google this video to see what she actually says and how she pronounces it. So I'm wondering, like the British accent, would it be Adele? And maybe that's why we thought it was Adele?
I'm not sure, but I want to hear her say it too.
Yes, me too.
Because now I don't know, my reality has been altered. It's not Adele.
It's funny though, because you can relate with this.
Absolutely.
But I wonder if you were a mega star and you released all these albums and everyone was pronouncing your name wrong, do you think you still would just be like, I'll go with it?
Well, you can't correct 2 million people? I mean, she did and we're reporting on it, so you kind of can,
but it's like 15 years later, so
let's go with that.
Right, let's not bother her too much. And I do think maybe there's a cultural difference there with the accents, so maybe that plays a part. All right, Tia, I know you are a coffee lover, so
you know it.
Let's move on to our next topic here. We're talking about Starbucks and their new holiday cups. So coffee lovers, it's time to get into the holiday spirit. Starbucks unveiled its new holiday cups, an annual tradition now in its 25th year. Beginning Thursday, customers will have their hot beverages served in one of 4 festive cup designs. That's also the day Starbucks starts serving its holiday drink menu. No new drinks are being added this year, but you can enjoy the usual peppermint mocha or chestnut praline latte. There is a new sweet treat being unveiled, though, a chocolate pistachio swirl roll. Interesting. Now, Tia, you stopped by Starbucks this morning. Did you get a hot drink?
I did. I got the chestnut praline.
And did you get one of these cool cups?
I did.
You did?
I got the snowflake one.
Did you throw it out? Or
no, I have it.
Okay.
I have it.
Let's show everyone. This is not an ad. This is
not
just
an ad.
A cultural moment for our country. And that is one of the cool cups in person.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I noticed that. I was like, oh, it is that time of year.
Yes, so that is these are the new cups. You may get one of 4. And of course, Starbucks is so ingrained in our culture that people get excited about this stuff. So what do you think? Were you a little bit happier when you, I know it was an early morning, were you a little bit happier when you got the new cup?
You know, I think I was, because there was coffee in it. like they're very, very cute. And I think it's always kind of a sign that Christmas is near. Christmas is nearing. And that's the message I think that we can take away from these lovely Starbucks cups.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm all about if it brings people joy, then let's go for it. You know?
Why not? Absolutely.
And you know what brings me joy? Celestial events. So let's talk about a celestial event that's coming up, and it's not going to be exclusive to any specific region. It will be something nationwide that everyone can enjoy. So there's going to be something special in the sky next Tuesday. On November 8th, a total lunar eclipse will be in the sky nationwide. A lunar eclipse is when the path of our nearest neighbor in space enters the Earth's shadow during a full moon phase that causes the light from the Earth's sunrises and sunsets to be cast on the moon, causing it to be temporarily appear red. If you missed Tuesday's sky show, you'll have to wait until 2025 for the next one. Astronomers, professionals, and otherwise can get more information about the total lunar eclipse on NASA's website. Ooh, something big happening on Election Day.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking like of all the days.
Right,
election.
And sometimes they say that weather patterns will affect the results of the election. You know, if it rains too much or if it's too hot, you know, whatever it may be, it can affect the results. But I wonder, can the moon affect the results? If there's a big red moon in the sky, is that something that can impact the results?
Well, you know, my mom, she used to work in a hospital, and she would, like, anytime there was a full moon, she would say that it was like just super crazy at work, which kind of has, you know, it has me a little curious. Just, you know, an interesting coincidence. So we'll have that election coverage and we'll see.
Yes, we'll see what shakes out. Well, I will say that I personally, this is anecdotal. There's no scientific evidence to back this up, but I personally think people drive crazier during full moon days. I just noticed that. Like, I just feel like whenever I'm noticing that people are driving particularly erratically, I'll say, you know what, I wonder if there's a full moon. And I'll look it up, and sure enough, there will be a full moon that night. And I've also heard anecdotal myths that women go into labor more during a full moon than other days. So anyways, all of this to say, you know, I wonder if there's a connection somehow, maybe the gravitational pull or however
I'm not
it may
sure,
be, to human behavior feeling a little bit off, maybe?
Well, I've heard about the labor thing also with like storms, like if it's a big storm or something crazy going into weather, somehow there's a higher chance of women, again, kind of like you said, anecdotal.
Right.
So we don't know.
Yeah, I think I did read an article once that says it may seem like something's happening a lot during a specific event, but the data doesn't back it up. So it's all
well, there you go.
Just, myth and anecdotal evidence. So again, if you're interested in checking out this lunar eclipse that is going to happen next Tuesday during the midterm elections, total lunar eclipse will be in the sky nationwide, so from coast to coast, and it will be in the path of our nearest neighbor in space. It will enter Earth's shadow during a full moon phase. And again, that causes the light from the Earth's sunrises and sunsets to be cast on the moon, causing it to temporarily appear red. So again, this is all going to be happening during our midterm election coverage. Be sure to check out Local News Live for that coverage. We'll be covering the elections through I believe, Tia, it's through the late afternoon on until about midnight. So
yes, it's a lot to watch. So you can watch the elections, watch the lunar eclipse. We'll have it all here.
Yep. Every time we go to break, just, hey, go outside and look at the moon. Why not? All right, a lot happening today, Tia. Thank you so much for talking about these fun topics with me. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but before we go, I wanted to take this opportunity to explain what Local News Live is, and I do have a new video to share with you about this. Let's go ahead and play this new video. All right, Local News Live is part of Gray Television. Gray Television has stations in cities all across America, and we take the most interesting stories told by the people who know them the very best and share them with you here on Local News Live. We'll be right back.